Okay, welcome to the Christian Cable. What we're going to do now is continue in our study of Ecclesiastes. Um, Last time we looked at the very last two verses to kind of get us started in the book, to kind of get some things about purpose and who wrote it, and some background of the book, and just some housekeeping things before we actually get into the other parts of the book. Today we'll be in chapter 1, and we'll go through the entire chapter, so let's get started. Okay, beginning in verse 1. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What advantage does man have in all his work which he does under the sun? I want to break those first 3 verses down. First verse is obviously our introduction. We have the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. That would be pointing to the author, which most likely Solomon. Verse 2 talks about vanity of vanities. Now, what is vanity? Vanity is something meaningless, something that doesn't have a point, something that in the end, it doesn't really matter. It won't matter to anything. So what Solomon's trying to get at, saying vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Now, if this is the first time you've read something like that in this book, you could be very confused. Because you'd be reading, what? I know what the word vanity means meaningless, but why is Solomon saying everything is meaningless? That's crazy. Why would everything be meaningless? Well, we'll keep coming back to that throughout this study, but keep that in mind. Vanity, meaningless, doesn't have a purpose. Remember that when we use that word. Verse 3 says, what advantage does man have in all his work which he does under the sun? This kind of goes along with the Solomon's questioning why we're doing certain things. Verses 4 through 7, these are some of Solomon's observations about human nature and about just what goes on in the world. He says, a generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. And then verses 5 through 7, he gives these examples of, the sun rises, sets, and then goes right back to where it rises. It goes in this cycle. Same thing with the wind. The rivers do the same thing. He has these examples, and the key verse really is a generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. What do you think that could mean? Well, verse 4 is getting at is history didn't begin with the day you were born, and the earth's been around a lot longer than you have. So Solomon is making an observation, but he's also kind of giving us a bit of perspective. And he uses examples in 5 through 7, and then we get to verse 8. And verse 8 says, all things are wearisome, man is not able to tell it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor is the eye filled with hearing. No, nor is the ear filled with hearing, sorry. Isn't that another true observation? How humans are never satisfied. It says all things are wearisome, man is not able to tell it. I like reading this verse backwards, if that makes sense, because if you read it backwards, it says, "Nor is the ear filled." It says the ear is not filled with hearing, and I'm modifying the words just so you can read it better. The eye is not satisfied with seeing. All things are wearisome, man is not able to tell it. If you think about it, those 3 parts of the verse are speaking to the part of human nature that's never satisfied. And then Solomon states that all things are wearisome and man's not able to tell it. If you look around you every day, people are so wrapped up in making sure that they have the latest news. They see the latest scientific discovery. They have to be up to date on just about everything. And humans are never satisfied with what they already have. Nobody can stay still. But yet, in the end, Solomon has learned this. I've learned this through some basic examples of things. But yes, in the end, all those things are wearisome. No matter how much information you know, no matter how much stuff you own, how many different artists you've visited or seen in person or gone to their concert or whatever, it's all wearisome. One phrase you'll see in this in this book over and over, I think it's in this chapter, is a chasing after the wind. And that's Solomon's slowly getting to that. Another part of human nature in verse 9, and this is a weird verse, so we'll slow down with this. It says, that which has been, that which will be. And that which has been done is that which will be done. What Solomon's saying here is there's nothing new. And I think he even gets to it later. Oh yeah, and the rest of the verse is, so there's nothing new under the sun. Yes, sorry, I didn't even read the rest of it. But yes, there's nothing new under the sun. Nothing new. And most people go off and say, oh, there's cell phones, there's cars. They didn't have that way back in Solomon's time. It's not what he's getting at. He's not getting at material things. He just wrapped up saying that those material things, all is wearisome. He's talking about human nature in this verse. Nothing is new. Sin has been sin. The truth has been the truth, has been the truth. I mean, hey, it's been around. You go to John 1:1, God's Word and God have always existed. History didn't begin the day you were born. Those are some key things you need to remember. Not just in studying this book, but just in life. Verse 10 says, is there anything of which one might say, see this, it is new. Already it has existed for ages, which were before us. Now, if you keep on the human nature track, what that could be getting at is, hey, murder is not new. Homosexuality, problems with that is not new. Sin is not new. It's always been around. When Christ comes back, that's when things will be fixed. But until that day comes, sin will always be here. Nothing will be new. It's all been done before. So, verse 11, this is a bit of a attack on history being passed down. It says, there is no remembrance of earlier things, and also of the later things which will occur. There will be for them no remembrance among those who will come later still. I'm going to say people struggle to learn from past mistakes. I'm a big culprit of that. But you pay attention to today's times, people are repeating history. And why? It's because they're not learning from it. People don't study history. History is not passed down. Nobody, we live in this new age of everything's new. We got the latest and greatest things. We're in a modern age. Nothing is like today. It's like, well, yeah, you're right with the cell phones and the cars and the advanced medicine. But sin is still sin, and it's still been around. And think about it. If you don't pass it down to your children, will they know to pass it down to their children? Now multiply that by about 7-8 generations. How many people do you have that never knew that sin was a problem, or just disregarded what God did for us, or disregarded the fact that, oh, that was a problem back then, it must not be now because history began the day we were born? We need to remember. We need to remember. We need to study the past. We need to study history, and we need to make that a part of our lives, and we need to pass it down. And we don't need to think of it as, another thing to do. No, think of it as this will help later generations. Maybe not necessarily your son or daughter, but maybe their son, their son's son, way down the road. Things like that. Okay. Verse 12. So I, the preacher, have been king over Jerusalem, or been king over Israel and Jerusalem, and I set my mind to seek and explore by wisdom concerning all that has been done under heaven. It is a grievous task which God has given to the sons of men to be afflicted with. I have seen all the works which have been done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and striving after the wind. Now, if you think about it in Solomon's perspective, he pretty much has the ability to say that he's seen everything. And we'll get later in the book, he actually goes back to some of the stuff he's done. Verse 15, what is crooked cannot be straightened, and what is lacking cannot be counted. I said to myself, behold, I have magnified and increased wisdom more than all who were over Jerusalem before me, and my mind has observed a wealth of wisdom and knowledge, and I set my mind to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I realized that this is a striving after the wind. In later chapters, we'll actually get to Solomon talking about wisdom being full of folly, and labor being full of folly. And I like how Solomon, even in all that God gave him, because you go back in Chronicles, I think it's First Chronicles, is where God gave Solomon wisdom. When God asked Solomon, "What? I'll give you anything you want," Solomon said, "I want wisdom." With all of that, Solomon even says that, you know what, this stuff is a striving after the wind. It also is vanity. And verse 18 follows up with, because in much wisdom there is much grief, and increasing knowledge results in increasing pain. I can't say I've fully experienced that verse, and this is the end. I'm not going to keep going. But you really find out how meaningless some of the stuff we do is. A lot of it is meaningless, even though some of it's fun. Some of it's fun to learn about. Science, music's pretty fun. But still, it's increasing pain. Sin ruins a lot. And that's why I can't wait. I really can't wait for Christ to come back, because I think we'll be able to experience the things we experience here, like music or science. We get to experience God's creation, but without the sin holding us back. Thanks.